Chapter 5 is in regards to socialization. When we talk about socialization, it's basically the process through which people are taught by the proficient members of a society. It describes the ways that people come to understand societal norms and expectations, to accept society beliefs, and to be aware of society values. Socialization is not the same as socializing. So they are two different things. It's a sociological process and occurrence through socializing. It's kind of a bit confusing there, but if you think about it, when you're trying to put together, your aspects of trying to know like what to do during lunchtime. You see different people, see cafeteria workers, you hesitate and you watch the other older kids pick up their trays and what to do. You're kind of following the lead in regards to how successfully to buy your lunch, more or less, or to do. No one really shows you. This is part of socialization. It's just something that kind of occurs as you go through and as you kind of guide yourself through it, all the pathways. So as you do this, you're doing what they call a self-development. So psychologically, or excuse me, psychologists or social psychological perspectives on self-development. You had Freud. Sigmund Freud kind of had his own ways. He influenced modern sciences to put forth the theories about how people develop a sense of self. He believed that personality and sexual developments were closely linked, and he divided the um, the process into psychosexual stages, which were oral, phallic, latency, and genital. He kind of said that these self developments is closely linked to early stages of development. As we progress through our childhood, we had our different stages of developing. Um, if you failed to properly engage or disengage from a specific stage, results in emotional or psychological consequences throughout adulthood. So if you have an adult with oral fixation, um, this was, like overeating or binge drinking type aspects. That's what it may include. If you have anal fixations, this produces like neat freak type aspects. Phallic stage, this is more the permissiveness, emotional immaturity type aspects. So he kind of broke it down into those different levels. Eric Erickson, he also had a theory as well that he explained how the actions of society help shape personalities throughout the eight basic stages of life. There are basically eight stages of life that we kind of develop in how we do things, from the time that we're born to the time that we do hit adulthood. And working with Freud's type aspects, Erickson kind of said, okay, well, personality continues to change over time, and was never fully finished. So when we're looking at our development of ourselves, we never truly really finish throughout it because we're always changing our processes. We're always changing our ways of how we do things. Um, Gene Pagent, he's also another psychologist. He looked more into specializing in child development, and he focused specifically on roles of social interactions and development. He recognized that self-involvement through the negotiation between the world and its existence of one's mind kind of helped play a role in that as well. He had four different stages as well when he came to his developments. George Herbert Mead had specific paths of developments for individuals, and he looked at the peripheral stage, the play stage, the game stage, and the generalized of other stages. So we have these different stages that kind of put us into a category in regards to help us develop appropriately throughout the aspects. So it started off with the self, which is a personal distant identity that is developed through social interaction. So me, through socialization, he learned to put ourselves in someone else's shoes, more or less, and he looked through the world through their own perspectives. So, like I said, that's when he came up with the periphery stage, which is, a child being capable of imitation, imitating how others see things. The second stage is a play stage, which a child begins to take on their own role, that one other person might have. During the next stage, which is the game stage, this is, children learn to consider several roles at the same time. How those roles interact with each other really depends in regards to. And that last stage is that generalize of other stages. And this is the common behavioral expectations of for general society. So that kind of breaks out those stages in regards to the way how Herbert Mead kind of developed it. Oops. But when we're looking at the socialization of things, it kind of teaches us our society expectation for dining out. How do we learn those? What stages do we learn that? That kind of goes back to that Herbert Mead in that final stage of generalization stage. And then we have Kohlberg theory of moral development. When do humans begin to think about the feelings of other people and begin to see the world through others people's eyes? This is kind of where he kind of developed it on a bigger side, that moral development. He wanted to understand, you know, when did someone start seeing that? When did someone start feeling how others people felt, other people's felt through their aspects? How do they see from another angle, from others people's eyes? And it's usually in their teenage years. That's when it develops. It's a post-conventional type aspect. So you have a pre-conventional, a conventional, and a post-conventional. These are all stages from young children to preteens to adulthoods. When you're looking at understanding that Gillian theory of moral development and gender, Carl Gillian recognizes that Kohlberg's theory might show gender bias since his research was only conducted on male subjects. There was no female subjects that were done on that. So that's the reason why they're not really 100% sure if those teenagers are really sure or true or full or not per the research. But Gilligan set out to study the differences in between how boys and girls develop morality. Her research demonstrated that boys and girls do, in fact, have different understandings of morality. Boys tend to have justice by placing emphasis on rules and laws, where on the other hand, girls tend to care and have care and responsibilities perspectives. In other words, consider people's reasons behind behavior and seem to be more morally wrong type aspects. So it kind of developed a little bit of a different understandings in regards to how the differences in the ways that boys and girls vary in their morality. No, that was Carol Gillian that did it when we're looking at this. When we're looking at why socialization matter, why do we need the socialization? What factors that implement us in regards to saying, yes, we absolutely have to have socialization? And that kind of comes back to that nature versus nurture type aspects. Some experts assert that we need that nature, that relationship, that caring that surrounds us. And where we also need that nurturing, where the temperatures, interesting, the talents of sets of birth type aspects, right? We kind of need them both to kind of intertwine with one another in order to kind of help us with the socialization. um, they tend to try to measure the impact of the nature is by studying twins. Which is why you see twins on the actual screen. Some studies have the following identical twins who were raised separately. Some were paired, you know, to kind of show how close in their genetics type aspects do they really have if they were separated at one point in time. Identical twins may look alike, but their differences can give us clues to the effects of sociology. So, socialization, not sociology, the socialization. So, depending on how they're socialized, will determine how much nature versus nurture they were able to get, or how much they were actually developed throughout their processes. Um, so, if you think of like a parent teacher conference, little Jimmy's teacher is anxious to meet his parents and they want to discuss his habits of disrupting in the class. But when the teacher expresses her concerns that, little Jimmy is not being socialized properly, his dad instantly, insists that he was the same way at Jimmy's age, and that he was a disrupting and little individual as well. The class is natural for the children and his family. Little Jimmy's teacher and his father are arguing about what fundamental sociological theory. That comes down to nature versus nurture. It's kind of one of those aspects. A lot of parents you might hear, "Oh yeah, they act just like I did when I was a kid." It's just the way how they were socialized. That's all it comes down to. It's a sociological theory in regards to how the effects of socialization, that nature versus nurture, in regards to how well do you actually socialize within a society. When we look at socialization through roles, families have these are agents in regards to socialization. Family is the first agent of socialization. Mothers and fathers, siblings, grandparents, members of the extended family all teach the children what he or she needs to know, either through example, by role modeling, whatever the aspects may be. Excuse me. When we're looking at this aspects, it's the world, how the world works. Who'd you learn it from so far? Who has been your socialized role to kind of lead you through your aspects of where you've gotten so far? um, Sociologists recognize that race, social class, religion, and other societal factors play an important role in society and socialization as well. Poor families usually emphasize obedience, conformity when raising their children, where wealthy families emphasize judgment and creativity. Really depends in regards to, what we're talking about. Wealthier families, even working class parents have less education and more repetitive task jobs, for which is helpful to be able to follow those rules and conformity type aspects. When we're looking at peer groups are important to adolescents because they help to develop a sense of identity separate from adolescents' parents. Um, if you think about it, you act differently when you're around your parents versus if you're around your friends. That's part of that socialization. You've learned that along the way, somehow, some way. Excuse me. So, peer groups are important to adolescents because they help to develop a sense of identity separate from the adolescent's parents. Parents expect you to act and behave a certain way. So sometimes it feels nice to kind of let your hair down and be yourself a little bit more around your peers. Excuse me. Schools also have a um, institutional agent type aspects to where they have their goals in regards to socialization as well. Um, Throughout a school day, I mean, in a school year, you have 180 days that you spend in school. So therefore, it's one of those situations to where it's important that school gives you your socialization that you need as well. They serve as more of a latent function in society by socializing children into behaviors like practicing teamwork, following schedules, using textbooks. In your guys's, you know, era, it's not so much textbooks anymore. It's more or less your Chromebooks. How to turn in your stuff through Google Docs and you know Google Classroom and all that type of aspects. You have that socialization through that type of way. Schools and classroom routines also help in regards to this as well. But when you're looking at the hidden curriculum of schools, um, teachers try to place in those, role models and be those leaders and regulate, reinforce, the society expectations for children. Um, that's all part of like a hidden curriculum type aspects, which is the informal teacher done by the school type aspects. The teachers try to be those role models and play a certain key type aspects. So kind of understand what a hidden curriculum of school kind of is. Education is important to society because of what reasons? It teaches children facts about the world in which they live in. It teaches children how to interact with their peers and help them to gain social grace. It teaches a child how to react to authority and how to behave in a group in one-to-one situations. This is where education kind of comes in and plays that aspects in regards to setting you up for that workplace lifestyle later down the road. It helps transition from what other areas that you need to. So, when you're transitioning from college life to work life, it can be quite difficult for many young adults in the United States, which is possible because of the struggling going back and forth. I mean, if you're thinking about a workplace, it's a struggle. It's not easy. The status quo has been maintained for a substantial period of time, and now the economy and government are undergoing a significant change, right? It's no longer getting up, going to school. Now it's getting up, actually going to work, and now it's earning that pay. Many young people in the same situation are drawing experience or knowledge from their experience from their peers is difficult as well. Like talking to your friends, like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. This is, I'm having such difficulties. It's hard to find that balance that you need once you're done with college life. And then finding a job, renting an apartment, being independent. Um, the old saying, being adulting is not easy. It's a adulting task that seems insurmountable. It's the aspects of just, it feels like it's never going to end type aspects, right? But if you think about it, your education has set you up for the society. Your college life has tried to, put you through those aspects as well to kind of help you determine, your lifestyle that you're going to live to help you set up those, you know, situations that it's going to help you through your life courses. Um, when we're looking at um, when we're looking at anticipatory socialization, or even when we're looking at mass media just distributes impersonal information on a wide audience via television, newspaper, radio, the internet. Lately, it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Parlor, whatever your source of social media is at. Social media is there for what reasons? You know, the average person spends over 4 hours a day in front of a television. To kind of give you an example, because of the pandemic that's going on, it's actually higher because of what's going on. Great media greatly influences social norms. Not only that, people learn about objects of material culture, non-material culture as well. So, what is true, beliefs type aspects. Um, it's a development in what's important, what's not important, what to expect, what not to expect. That's where social media kind of comes in and plays a huge role in regards to that aspects. When we're looking at anticipatory socialization, this is more of a preparation for their future life roles. Kind of some examples to include are like a couple who cohabitate before marriage, or soon to be parents who, read infant care books and prepare their home for a new arrival. It's that anticipation, right? Anticipatory. It's kind of, what to expect, how to expect it, when to expect it. Those It's all those types of aspects. It's that transitioning point. How do we handle it? How do we move from one to the other? So kind of give you guys examples like you decide to be business major, you attend one of the 10 business schools and one of the top 10 business schools. Upon graduation, you're hired by a major investment banking firm in New York. You've completed that anticipatory socialization. You did the steps that you need to. You prepped yourself to get to where you need to. Same thing with basic training. Members in the Air Force are taught to walk, move, look like each other. That all goes with that same situation. Um, However, along with the military type aspects, there is what they call a degradation ceremony. It's an effort to control a total institution to create a community of sameness. Inmates are forced to strip down, excuse me, by searched by police officers and given identical uniforms by entering prison is an example of degradation ceremony. Same thing with military. Military go through basic training, they basically go through a degradation ceremony. They're stripped of their identity, they're expected to have their hair cut a certain way, hair up in a certain way, dress in the same uniforms, walk the same way, walk in uniline, uniform, walk in straight lines, march formation, that's, chanting, whatever the case may be, they've been gone through a degradation ceremony to make them more military respectable. So therefore, they have a new identity as a military person type aspects. That is all for chapter 5. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me.